Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, our today's session is on features of academic writing. Well, academic writing is a very important and integral part of the study skills of students. But before I go into the details of academic writing and its features, I would like to share the review of previous lesson. Our previous lesson was on prepositions. I talked about what is a preposition, what is its relationship with the words that surround it, what are prepositional phrases. I defined what are prepositional phrases and then I gave you examples to explain that. I also shared a list of important prepositions in English. I asserted that there are more than 150 prepositions in English, and I shared 70 prepositions that are more commonly used in English. With that, we moved on to a detailed description of the rules of the use of each of these prepositions. I also gave you examples of the application of each of these rules. Mainly, we talked about prepositions with reference to time, location, and position. Then we moved on to activities and exercises related to the application of rules that are to be applied when English prepositions are used in writing or speaking English. With this, we move on to today's session. Okay, so as far as today's session is concerned, as I have already said, it is about the features of academic writing. If you can recall, when I was introducing development of writing skill, I said that there are certain features of academic writing, and I actually gave a brief introduction to those specific features of academic writing. But at that point I said that we would do separate session or sessions on these features. So this session is our first session on the features of academic writing. More time I am going to spend with you working on the features of academic writing, because I think this is one of the very important as well as very relevant area for you being students. So in today's session we would talk about important features of academic writing. We would start with what is academic writing. Then we would discuss the importance of learning academic writing, and with that we would move on to different features. I would give you examples to explain and elaborate each of these. I would also share some activities with you on some of these features so that you could have some practice about the use of these features in your everyday academic writing. Well, starting with what is academic writing. Well, as you can see that I have just left the slide empty. There is no information that I have provided on what is academic writing as such on this slide. One of the reasons is that I think more than anybody else, you would know what academic writing is. What I mean to say is that as a student, academic writing is an integral part of your requirements. It is an integral part of the skills that you are supposed to learn as a learner of English as a foreign language and a user of English. In fact, all the type of writing activities that you do, be it taking exams, preparing assignments, writing letters, preparing projects, writing answers to certain questions, all these problem solving activities that you do, everything that you do in the sphere of education in the form of writing, in this or that way, it is a part of academic writing. So it is the scope of academic writing, especially academic writing in English, that is very vast for the students. In the Pakistani context, if you look at your examination system and your classroom activities, you would realize that most of the times with related to the subject of English or in relation to the language English itself, when you write something in a formal way in your academic life, All that is a part of your academic writing, and it has a vast variety of exercises and activities. Well, because our examination system is writing oriented, and in fact our whole educational system is examination oriented, the natural result is that those who can produce better products as writing, as academic writing in their exams, or in case of their projects or assignments or quizzes, they perform better and they get better results. That is why it is crucial for you to learn how to write in your academic exercises, activities, quizzes, or papers. Talking about the importance of learning academic writing, I would say most of the times students think it is an art. Academic writing is an art. Most of the times you would have listened to students, to friends talking about or complaining about the factor कि मुझे तो इतनी अच्छी तरीके से आता था, इतना सारा लिखा था, 15 सफ़े भरे थे और सर ने उसमें से या मैडम ने उसमें से 3 नंबर दिए 10 में से या 5 नंबर दिए 15 में से. What do these complaints actually refer to? These complaints most of the times, in majority of the cases, refer to poor academic writing skills. Even if you know the correct answer, even if you know what you want to share on a piece of paper, if you do not know how to share that, it becomes very, very critical. This is why that the learning of academic writing is very, very important. Academic writing and its characteristics are not something that would be ambiguous or that would be haphazard. They are systematic, they are organized, logical, and of course they are clear. So learning these rules or knowing about these features helps you write in a better way. In the current session and the sessions that would follow, we would talk about different features of academic writing. We would explore each of those and we would see how it is applicable to the kind of writing that you would do in your academic activity. Well, here is a list of important academic writing features. There are 8 main features of academic writing. Number 1, academic writing is complex. When I say complex, what I mean by that is that it is not that simple as the spoken language would be or as the language of informal writing would be. Secondly, academic writing is formal. By formality, what I mean is that on the degree of or on the decline of formality from informality, if you measure it, you would see it is very, very formal. Language proper is to be used for academic writing. You cannot use slang or colloquial language. The third feature of academic writing is that it is objective. What do I mean by objective? Okay, what I mean by the fact that academic writing is objective, that it is not subjective in nature, which means it does not voice, and especially it does not voice explicitly the personal opinions of the writer or the user of language. Fourth important feature of academic writing is that it is explicit, which means it conveys everything clearly, everything is presented in a sure short manner, and things are not placed in an implicit way where different meanings can be interpreted without knowing the exact meaning of what a piece of writing means. Fifth important feature, and that is very, very important for you, is that academic writing is precise. Precision is very important. वो जो मैंने भी शुरू में बात की थी, that many of you complain that you wrote 15 pages or 14 pages and at the end of the day you could score only 3 or 4 marks out of 15. So you do not most of the times maybe realize that writing more is not generally the requirement of any academic writing activity. Generally speaking, you need to be precise and accurate in what you say. So, the sixth feature of academic writing is accuracy. Academic writing is accurate, which means it exactly tells what the writer wants to tell. It avoids any kind of ambiguity and confusion. It also avoids abstract or non-concrete presentation of ideas, thoughts, or anything else. Seventh important feature of academic writing is that it is hedged, which means whatsoever is said, though it has to be precise and accurate, it is to be said with extreme care. It is to be said in a way that the blame does not come to you in case of the information not being correct. It also means that you take the responsibility of only that much of it that you believe is true. With this, we come to the last important feature of academic writing, that is, it is responsible. What do I mean by responsible? Well, what I mean by this factor that academic writing is the writing that involves responsibility. Actually, what I mean is that academic writing is careful and planned writing in which the writer knows that when he or she says something or writes something, he or she is taking the responsibility of something that is written by him or her on the piece of paper. Well, this was just a brief introduction to all the 8 important features of academic writing. However, at this time point, it might seem to you that they are very simple. Actually, they have a lot of information that I would like to share with you regarding each of these. So we would go through each of these one by one. Though we would not be able to cover all of these features in one session, we would divide all these features into several sessions and we would go into the details of all these sessions. While discussing all those important features, we would talk about certain sub-features that are included in any of these particular feature. With this, we come to the first feature of academic writing, and that is complexity. Written language is relatively more complex than spoken language. This means that written language has longer words, it is lexically more dense, and it has a more varied vocabulary. It also means that it uses more noun-based phrases than verb-based phrases. Written texts are shorter and the language has more grammatical complexity, including more subordinate clauses and more passives. If you just think of any example of your spoken discourse or even some informal written discourse, you would see that a long piece of communication would convey a very little part of information. However, when it comes to academic writing, this is not the case. Academic writing is dense and it is complex, which means in a shorter space, within a few words, more information is provided. The natural result of this is that it is complex. It is complex both in terms of vocabulary, which means it has more difficult words, it has longer words, and it is lexically dense. It also means that it is structurally complex, which means less simple sentences are used and comparatively more compound or complex sentences and even compound complex sentences are used in academic writing. Well, I have used the term lexical density. What does it mean? Lexical density is a useful measure of the difference between texts, for example, between a person's written language and their speech. To calculate this, we must distinguish between content words and function words. अब content words क्या होते हैं और function words क्या होते हैं? We need to be clear about this. Content words वो होते हैं that provide us some information, जो हमें कुछ knowledge, कुछ information provide करते हैं about the topic or the idea that is talked about in that piece of writing. Content words include, for example, nouns and adjectives. Most of the times, nouns are content words. Whereas there are some words that are used to create the structure of the language of academic writing. These words are used to create the syntactic system of what is presented. ये words जो होते हैं ये हमें information नहीं देते हैं, लेकिन grammatically they put the information in a right form to be interpreted and understood by the reader. These are called function words. Function verbs अब कौन से होते हैं? जैसे auxiliaries हैं, is, am, are, can, seem, may, might, could. ये सब all these are functional words जो कि actually link up कर रहे होते हैं. इसी तरह से prepositions would come into these into functional words जो link up करती हैं एक part को दूसरे part से. Conjunctions जो हैं, interjections जो हैं, ये सब they all work as functional words. Lexical density is shown to be a useful measure of how much information is contained within a text. If you remember, on the previous slide I talked about the academic writing from the perspective of lexical density, and I said that academic writing provides more information in lesser space and in fewer words. Well, the more content words would be a part of a piece of writing, the more information in general it would provide. So, as I have already explained, content words are all those words that are nouns, verbs or adjectives. A content word has a stateable lexical meaning. इनमें से हर word का एक stateable meaning होता है, एक definitive meaning होता है, rather than indicating a syntactic function as a function word or a functional word would do. In comparison to this, a function word is a word such as a preposition, a conjunction or an article that has little semantic content of its own. Semantic content means meaning. इसका अपना meaning इतना important नहीं होता, वो इतना contribute नहीं करता towards the information that is provided in any piece of writing. And basically a function word indicates a grammatical relationship. These are sometimes also called form words and functors. Well, here is a list of all what you would call content words. These include, as I have already said, nouns, for example, dog, Suzanne, oil. Adjectives, for example, red, happy, cold. अब अगर आप देखो तो इनमें से हर word, if it occurs somewhere in some piece of writing, so it provides some information. In the same way, adverbs, very, carefully, yesterday, ये verb के बारे में information provide करते हैं adverbs. And lexical verbs, for example, run, walk, sit, that provide information about some particular action. On the other hand, function words include auxiliary verbs, जैसे मैंने पहले कहा, can, will, have. अब अगर आप देखें, for example, if in a piece of writing, especially in a piece of academic writing, a word can or will or have is used, it would provide very less information about the content of what that piece of writing or that paragraph or that sentence is about. It would rather give a kind of form or a kind of structure to that sentence or paragraph. In the same way, prepositions are function words, for example, in, to, after. Conjunctions such as and, but, if. दो sentences को जोड़ देते हैं ना, अगर आप दोनों sentences को अलग अलग रखें, for example, without using a conjunction, what would happen? The information that is provided in the sentence would remain the same. लेकिन grammatically, to give it a harmony, to give it coherence, and, for example, or but can be used. Sometimes numerals 1, 2, 3, first, etc. and in the same way, in the same way, determiners, for example, the, this, those, my, etc., all these work as functional words that help organize the information in a piece of writing. Pronouns also sometimes work as function words to help us arrange information in a certain way. For example, if somebody has already been referred to, again when he or she is referred to, the pronoun he or she can be used for that, which would not further add to any information on the content, but would help you organize or understand, you know, what is said next in relation to the person who has already been referred to. So far I have used the term lexical density quite a few times. Well, to show you an example of lexical density of written English or written language, I have an example here in front of you. In this example, as you would notice, there are a lot of words that are underlined. All the words that are underlined are lexical words, words that convey some information or that add to the contents about the idea that is presented in this paragraph. Let's read this paragraph together. In 1918, when the chemical industry was first established in the area, Bellingham was a village inhabited by a few hundred people, but grew rapidly as ICI's operations expanded, helped by the company's reputation for providing secure employment. Now this is an example of formal writing or academic writing. Look at this one sentence. How dense and how complex the information that is provided is here. Look at the words that are underlined. There are quite a number of words that are underlined here to show you that how much of information is conveyed within this sentence. Anyhow, we continue. The wages, conditions and benefits offered by ICI were attractive and the company quickly gained a reputation as a good employer. Many of those were interviewed claimed this was their main reason for applying for a job. Our interviews also highlight the influence of family when making decisions about employment, and ICI was certainly happy to recruit the sons and daughters of existing workers. So if you overall look at the whole paragraph, you would see a lot of words are underlined. There is a big number of words that are underlined. All this shows that these words convey some content information, some basic information about what is being talked about in this paragraph. In comparison to this, the number of the words that are function words or that are functors is comparatively less. If you compare it with any of the examples of your everyday talk, you would see that the number of content words would be less as compared to the function words. See, for example, at the top is an example from the spoken discourse. You can control the trains this way, and if you do that, you can be quite sure that they'll be able to run more safely and more quickly than they would otherwise, no matter how bad the weather gets. Now, this can be an example of an informal written discourse or spoken discourse. Compare it to academic formal written discourse that is given at the bottom of the same slide, and it states, the use of this method of control unquestionably leads to safer and faster train running in the most adverse weather conditions. अब अगर आप इन दोनों examples में से if you underline the content words, you would see that the number of content words in comparison to the function words would be higher in the written or in the formal written or academic written discourse that is given at the bottom. And if you notice, you would also see that the presentation of this information, that is for formal written discourse, it is very, very precise. It takes less words. So it is dense and it is complex in its nature. With this, we come to another example. The second example here states, and this is the example of spoken discourse. Whenever I'd visited there before, I'd ended up feeling that it would be futile if I tried to do anything more. Now look at a more focused formal academic discourse, and it states, every previous visit had left me with a sense of the futility of further action on my part. You can notice the use of more difficult words, longer words, more formal words. You can see the complexity of the structure itself. All these things help give it a formal shape and form that is required for academic writing. And here we go with the next example. The example of spoken discourse or informal written discourse can be, because the technology has improved, it's less risky than it used to be when you install them at the same time, and it does not cost so much either. Well, look at the comparatively more complex and more dense form of it. It is also more precised, by the way. And the written discourse example is, improvements in technology have reduced the risks and high costs associated with simultaneous installation. Look at the structure of both the examples. You would see the structure of the second example is far more formal. It is far more structured. It is also with words that are longer, especially the content words. They are longer and they are more difficult items from vocabulary. With this, we move on to the second important feature of academic writing, and that is formality. Well, I have already introduced what do I mean by formality. I would, however, reiterate here and explain it further. Academic writing is relatively formal. In general, this means that in a formal piece of writing, you should avoid colloquial words and expressions such as stuff, a lot of, thing, sort of. अच्छा, अभी आपने नोटिस किया होगा जब मैं आपसे भी बात कर रही थी, a lot of times I used the phrases like a lot of words. I would say there are certain things that I want to explain. The kind of stuff that we would talk about in today's session. Okay, because this is not a written discourse, it is possible to use these words, and also to create an air of informality and of friendliness as well. These expressions that are informal or colloquial, they can be used. But when it comes to formal writing or academic writing, it is necessary to use words that are of formal nature. So colloquial or slang expressions cannot be used. Here is an example of avoiding slang words and phrases. Look at the text that is given in black and then compare it with the text that is given in blue. In each of these cases, I have highlighted the areas that are to be changed or that are to be considered for more formal expression in bold form. Look at example 1. The individual was sentenced for nicking a bike. Nicking a bike means stealing a bike, but this is a very informal or colloquial expression. So in formal writing, you would write the individual was sentenced for stealing a bike. In the same way, look at the second example. The doctor looked kind of worried when he reviewed the case notes. Now, kind of worried actually means somewhat worried. So somewhat worried or kind of worried, both of these expressions cannot be used in written formal academic writing. Why? Because they are not a formal choice. So what can be written as a formal choice? Maybe the doctor looked slightly worried when he reviewed the case notes. Formal writing, and when I say that academic writing is formal, I also mean that in academic writing you avoid abbreviations and contractions. Well, on the slides so far that you would have seen of all the sessions, you would have noticed that sometimes I use abbreviations and contractions in the written form. The purpose is to create a more friendly teacher-student environment for learning and to reduce the degree of formality of the situation in which distant learners would learn. But when it comes to writing for academic purposes, where you have to submit a document or to present a document for reading by somebody, actually it has to be written without abbreviations and contractions. Abbreviations and contractions are informal and they are best avoided in academic writing to give it a formal look. For example, the word department, complete word, should be used instead of the abbreviation DEPT, DEP. In the same way, is not should be used in place of the contraction isn't. So abbreviations and contractions both are to be avoided. Okay, here is a small activity for you. Here are 3 sentences. Each one of these has some informal expression used in them. What I want you to do is to read these and to rewrite them with a more formal equivalent. Number 1, with women especially, there is a lot of social pressure to conform to a certain physical shape. Number 2, significantly, even at this late date, David was considered a bit conservative by his peers. And number 3, it focused on a subject that loads of upper-class exhibition-going public regarded as anti-social and anti-establishment. I would ask you to stop here for a while, to take your time to identify. Number 1, there are 2 tasks. Number 1, to identify those expressions that are informal, those phrases, words or parts of sentences that are informal, and then to change them with more formal expressions. Once you are done with this, you can move on to the next slide. So here I have identified those areas for you and I have rewritten them. Here number 1 example was, with women especially, there is a great deal of social pressure. So instead of a lot of social pressure, a great deal of social pressure to conform to a certain physical shape, because a great deal of is a more formal expression. Look at the sentence that follows, that is sentence number 2. Significantly, even at this late date, David was considered somewhat conservative by his peers. Now, if you go back to this slide, you would see a bit conservative. Okay, a bit conservative is very informal. Here what I have done is I have changed it with somewhat. Somewhat is an okay expression for academic or formal writing. If you want to be more formal in your expression, for example, you can use David was considered to some extent conservative by his peers. So to some extent can be a far better option in this case. Look at example 3's solution. It focused on a subject that much of the bourgeois and upper-class exhibition-going people regarded as anti-social and anti-establishment. Now, if you go back to the previous slide, you would notice the use of loads of. Instead of loads of, much of is to be used in a formal situation. Dear students, with this we move on to the third feature of academic writing, and the third important feature of academic writing is its objectivity. Academic written language is in general objective rather than personal. It therefore has fewer words that refer to the writer or the reader. This means that the main emphasis should be on the information that you want to give and the arguments you want to make rather than you. For that reason, academic writing tends to use nouns and adjectives rather than verbs and adverbs. When you write answers for your questions in examination or for your assignments or quizzes or any other academic activity, until and unless your opinion is explicitly asked for, I would say nobody really wants to know what you think or believe. They want to know what you have studied and learned and how this has led you to your various conclusions. So you have to create an air of objectivity. You have to keep your subjective or personal opinions separate from what you write in academic writing. This leads us to personal or impersonal style when it comes to be objective or subjective. Well, an impersonal style uses the passive voice, which means if you are being objective in your writing, you would use passive voice. It does not mean, however, that all the times you would use passive voice. However, at a point where you want to show that you are objective, one of the techniques that can be used is that you can use passive voice. You would use the third person rather than the first person. Instead of saying, I state this, maybe it is stated. That would be passive as well, and that would have the third person pronoun. In the same way, an impersonal writing style uses things rather than people as subjects of sentences. Let me share a few examples with you. Here are some examples of active and passive sentences. Number one sentence is active. I observed the patient to be ... which means the sentence continues. The same thing you can say in passive form. The patient was observed to be ... What I mean to say here is, you see, in the first case where I foregrounds the sentence, where I comes at the beginning of the sentence, actually what you are showing to the reader is that you are taking a stance. Whereas in the passive case, that is the second sentence, this is not so, and a kind of what I would call air of objectivity is lent to the sentence. और वो जो मैंने बात कही ना कि things rather than people are subjects of sentences in impersonal style, अब ये उसकी example ज़रा देखिए, active passive भी है और साथ ही ये चीज़ भी है. The authors suggest that, जो भी आप आगे बात कहते हैं, और it is suggested that, आप जो भी आगे कहते हैं. The next example is active. We used a standard graphical representation to do whatsoever. Look at the passive form. A standard graphical representation was used to. अब देखिए, again first person collective plural pronoun we आ गया, और फिर we people you are focusing on also. उसके मुकाबले में if you are writing in an impersonal style or in an objective style, what you can do is a standard graphical representation. इससे एक तो क्या हुआ, your third person voice is used, which gives a kind of neutrality to what you say, and secondly the focus becomes more on the thing that you're talking about instead of the people who talked about that. Continuing on personal or impersonal style, I would share a few more examples. Examples of the first and third person pronouns are here. First person, I found. Third person, it was found that. First person, I assumed that. Third person, it was assumed that. So you see how there is a shift from first person to third person, and how there is also, by the way, a shift from people to the thing or the idea itself. Here are some examples of the persons or things as subjects. Person as subject, I noticed. Thing as subject, analysis of the raw data indicated. So another example is, the example is of person as subject. In this report I show dash. Whereas example of thing as a subject is, this report presents dash. So in all these cases, the second examples, the second options are better options, saying it generally, I would say, when it comes to academic writing or formal writing. However, I would like to point out that it is not necessary that all the time you would use objectivity as a feature of academic writing. Sometimes it needs a particular kind of subjectivity, especially when it is asked for explicitly. In that case, you can voice your own opinion, your judgment or your suggestion by using active voice, by using first person or singular pronoun, or first person plural pronoun, that is I or we. However, I would say that in general, avoid words such as I, me or myself. Don't write too much repetitively the phrases that are of this kind. In my opinion, this is a very interesting study. Instead of that, write, this is a very interesting study. Because if you say, in my opinion, it lends some kind of subjectivity to it. In the same way, avoid you to refer to the reader or people in general. Occasionally you can do that if it is the need of a particular context or situation of writing. However, do not do it repeatedly, or do not, I would say, overdo it. So do not use very frequently the phrases or the sentences that would have the use of you addressing the people or the reader. You can easily forget how different life was 50 years ago. Instead of that, a more formal writing style in academic writing would be, it is easy to forget how difficult life was 50 years ago. So if you compare these two sentences, you can notice how the degree of formality changes, and actually how the first sentence is very, very personal opinion, whereas it also involves the readers or the respondents to the text or the people. In the case of the second example, it is easy to forget how difficult life was 50 years ago is a very, very neutralized statement, and it does not have any subjectivity explicitly expressed as such in the sentence. So as I said at the beginning of today's session that I would bring on board some activities that I would like you to do to have some practice of the use of these features of academic writing. So here, keeping the promise, I have an activity for you. Here is a piece of writing that is subjective in its nature. Change it into objective style of academic writing. The paragraph goes as, I would call Wagner a subjective artist. What I mean is that his art had its source in his personality. His work was virtually independent. I always feel of the epoch in which he lived. Sorry, his work was virtually independent, I always feel, of the epoch in which he lived. On the other hand, I always consider Bash as objective artist. You can see that he worked only with the forms and ideas that his time proffered him. I don't think he felt any inner compulsion to open out new paths. I would advise you to take your time to write it for yourselves in a more objective tone or in a more objective style. Once you are done, you can go on to the next page to see the possibility that I have provided in this case. So here is a sample of more objective writing of the same. Let us read this. Wagner was what might be called a subjective artist. अभी आप इस शुरू वाले पार्ट को देखिए. What might be called a subjective artist, and compare it with the previous one. I would call Wagner a subjective artist. So whether you call him a subjective artist or you only indicate that he can be called a subjective artist, these are two different ways of presenting the idea. One very subjective, the other very, very objective. So it is more neutral and it is more objective when you say Wagner was what might be called a subjective artist, in that his art had its source in his personality. His work seems virtually independent of the epoch in which he lived. Please compare it with the previous one. Here, his work was virtually independent of the epoch in which he lived. यहाँ पर ये जो बीच में ये within two commas था ना, I always feel, the personal opinion, subjective voice, this has to be removed when it comes to objective writing. Continuing on the sample activity, I would say, on the other hand, Bash can be considered as an objective artist. He seems to have worked only with the forms and ideas that his time proffered him, feeling no inner compulsion to open out new paths. You can compare again it with this one. I always consider, I do not think, you can see. All these parts are to be replaced with more objective style expressions, and this is what is done here in this case. You can just lay your hand at any other pieces of informal writing style or subjective writing style, and you can convert it into more objective style for your practice. Dear students, with this we move on to the fourth important feature of academic writing, and that is explicitness. Academic writing is explicit about the relationships in the text. Furthermore, it is the responsibility of the writer to make it clear to the reader how the various parts of the text are related. These connections can be made explicit by the use of different signaling words. So what I would advise is, if you think that one sentence gives reason for something in another sentence, make it explicit. Number two, if you think two ideas are almost the same, say so. Mention the same idea is presented in this way, for example. Number three, if you intend your sentence to give extra information, make it clear that it is extra information. You can use, for example, different punctuation marks for that. And number four, if you are giving examples, do it explicitly. It should be clear from your writing style that the particular part that you have added is an example to clarify your point or to explain your point. In this case, I would say, when you want to create explicitness, there are certain things that I want you to follow. The first thing is use parallel constructions. By parallel constructions, what I mean is that if you have 5 sentences, for example, in a paragraph, all the sentences should have some kind of parallelism or the same kind of structure for the sentences that would help the reader understand their link. Especially when it comes to complex compound sentences or complex sentences, I would say, compound sentences and compound complex sentences. In those cases, you need to use parallel constructions between or amongst the phrases or the clauses so that the reader is not confused. So in that case, what I would say is lists of ideas and number lists of ideas should be written in parallel form. Here is an example of something that is not parallel. There is some part that I have underlined. You can see it is not parallel to the first part. If you want to be a good doctor, you must study hard, critically think about the medical literature, and you should be a good listener. What happens in this sentence that the writer has given 3 important factors for being a good doctor. And what are those 3 factors? Number 1, that to be a good doctor you must study hard. What is the second factor? That you must have the ability to think critically. And number 3, that you must be a good listener. But the way the information is provided is 3 different kinds of structures are used within these phrases. I would like you to compare this with a revised structure that is far more parallel as compared to the first structure. Look at what is written. If you want to be a good doctor, you must study hard, listen well and think critically. अच्छा, अब ये listen well और think critically जो ना, आप इनकी तरतीब अगर वापस वैसे करना चाहते हैं, think critically and listen well, तो आप कर सकते हैं. But what I have done is I have given the critical thinking third part because जो rest of the part of the phrase about the medical literature वो उसको मैं I wanted to bring it to the end so that it becomes easier. What you can notice in this construction is study hard, listen well and think critically. All the 3 have imperative structures. Imperatives याद है ना जो हमने किए थे sentences की different forms, basic sentence forms. An imperative is what? An imperative is a kind of a simple sentence that is basically used, the structure is basically used for a command, for an order or for a request. Look at this as well. This is another possibility for the same. If you want to be a good doctor, you must be a good student, a good listener and a critical thinker about the medical literature.
अब इस केस में क्या किया है, ये जो यहाँ था ना मस्ट स्टडी, मस्ट लिसन, थिंक क्रिटिकली, सब वर्ब्स थे ना, और फिर इम्पेरेटिव फॉर्म ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर यूज हुई थी. अब यहाँ क्या किया है, ऑल आर चेंज्ड इनटू नाउन्स. अ गुड स्टूडेंट, अ गुड लिसनर एंड अ क्रिटिकल थिंकर, यहाँ पर ये चेंज करके. सो द कंस्ट्रक्शन इज नाउ पैरेलल, नाउन 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 एवरी टाइम, स्टूडेंट, लिसनर, थिंकर. और नाउन फ्रेजेस आपने यूज किए हैं ना, गुड स्टूडेंट, गुड लिसनर, क्रिटिकल थिंकर. Going back to the first structure that was non-parallel, look at this. Study hard. क्या था? Verb था. Critically think about. Structure बिल्कुल different हो गया और फिर verb form में है. And you should be a good listener. अभी देखो ना ये noun use किया हुआ है. So the structures are not parallel. So these are two possibilities, and actually there exist a few more possibilities that can be explored as you practice through this. Well, here is another activity for you. Here is something that is not written in parallel structure. Write it in a way that adheres to the rules of parallel formation of structure. अब ये आप देखिए, इसको पढ़िए. This research follows 4 distinct phases. Number 1, establishing measurement instruments. Number 2, pattern measurement. Number 3, developing interventions. And number 4, the dissemination of successful interventions to other settings and institutions. Just as a clue, I would like to share ये establishing measurement instruments, establishing verb से शुरू किया है. Pattern measurement बिल्कुल different structure. Developing ये फिर establishing वाला structure. The dissemination of, अब ये बिल्कुल एक अलग structure of successful intervention. तो फिर verbs और फिर nouns different structures combine किए हैं, so it is not parallel. That is why it becomes difficult for the reader to understand the information easily. So take your time, try to sort it out, and try to write it in a way that shows more parallel formal structures. Here, for example, I have given a sample for you. This research follows 4 distinct phases. Number 1, establishing measurement tools. Number 2, measuring patterns. था ना pattern measurement, तो patterns measurement को measuring patterns कर दिया है, तो establishing measuring एक तरह हो गया ना. Developing interventions and disseminating successful interventions to other settings and institutions. Now you can see the ing construction is used in this case for all the 4 points or the distinct phases that are mentioned with reference to this particular research. This gives it a more formal look. This also makes it easier for the reader to understand. Well, do I have another activity for you? Not exactly, as a matter of fact. What you can do is you can take any piece of academic writing that is structured in a non-parallel formation way. What you can do is you can try different possibilities of how a structure that is non-parallel can be changed into parallel structures. I hope this would have added some clarity to you. With this, I actually bring you towards the closing of today's session. Actually, today's session, before I close the session, I would like to share a review of today's session. As I said at the outset of the session that academic writing has some important features, and I have selected 8 features of academic writing that I want to share with you. I started the session with what is academic writing, then I moved on to importance of learning academic writing. With that, I started discussing the features of academic writing one by one. I presented 8 main features of academic writing. That academic writing is complex. Number 2, it is formal. Number 3, it is objective. Number 4, it is explicit. Number 5, it is precise. Number 6, it is accurate. And number 7, that it is hedged. Finally, number 8 feature of academic writing is that it is responsible. As far as the current session is concerned, so far we have covered the 4 first features in the list. I have talked about the complexity related to academic writing, the degrees of formality that are important in academic writing. I have also discussed the issues of objectivity and subjectivity with reference to academic writing, and I have established that academic writing has to be objective. I have also given you some examples of how one piece of writing can be subjective, and then by changing it to more objective tone, you can give it the form and shape of more formal academic writing. The fourth important feature that I discussed with you today was explicitness. Academic writing is explicit and clear in its meanings, and it directly and exactly says what it wants to say. To make any piece of academic writing explicit, the most important feature is to use parallel structures. I gave you some examples of parallel structures. I showed you more than one possibilities of converting one non-parallel structure into a parallel structure. You were also given some activities or some examples where you had to change some non-parallel structure into a parallel structure. So this is what we have covered so far about the features of academic writing. In the next session, inshallah ta'ala, we will cover the rest of the features of academic writing, which means precision, accuracy, hedging, and responsibility. These four features are yet to be covered in the upcoming sessions on academic writing. So with this, I end today's session. Thank you very much.